as always, just going to wait for the notification to come up. There it is. So we should be live. And hello and welcome to everyone just joining us now. I see someone come up in the comments there. So welcome to what will be the penultimate round here in ALR Season 5. And we're here in Brazil, so it should be a good race. I mean, Brazil's definitely one of those tracks where racing is encouraged just by the general layout. You know, you have that big long main straight coming off of the final corner with DRS into a turn one. It's not the easiest to overtake through turn one, but you have lots of options. You know, you can go around down the inside, you can go around the outside, because of course it switches back into turn two. It's a chicane. So you know, if going around the outside is an option for the better run through turn two, or you can go, you know, brake late on the inside, try and just get a better run through turn one than your opponent, and be fully ahead for turn two. And either really works as an option, to be honest. And it's not like if the person you're trying to overtake defends to the inside, you can't overtake anymore, because you do have the option of going around the outside. And then again you have turn 3, which obviously comes, well, has a DRS detection point just before it, and then you come out of turn 3 straight onto another DRS zone, which gives another good opportunity down to turn 4 for overtaking. You then have turn 5 and 6. It's not too hard to keep with another car through there, and maybe if you're feeling a bit brave, you can go for a dive into turn 7. Not the most common place for overtaking, but it can be done. And then again, turn 9 and 10. If you're brave, you can make a move there. It's not really recommended, because you're only a couple of corners away from that main straight again, so it's not usually worth it to go for a move there. But you know, if it's the last lap or something, you might go for it, as we saw with Albon and Hamilton in the real life 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix. So definitely one of those tracks which encourages overtaking and encourages action and some good racing. So hopefully we should get some good racing here today, as these guys usually do provide in that sense. Just having a look, we have 18 drivers in the lobby right now, so shouldn't be too far away from having everyone in here. I'm not sure how many we're looking to get total, because I know we do have quite a few absences this week. Just ready up at 8 PM they say, so that is, well, less than a minute now, so we should be good to go. 19 drivers in the lobby now, and all 3 streams are live, so that's all tiers are now live. If you're at all interested, yeah, just looking like, okay, so it's 8 o'clock, so I think that should be everyone readying up now. Currently only have 5 drivers readied up, but they did say ready up as soon as it hits 8, and it is now 8 o'clock, so we should see, once some people realise, we should see some more people hitting that ready up button. Doesn't look like it's happening. We do have 19 drivers, which I'm quite surprised about. I thought there'd be less considering the number of absences, but we do seem to have got a mostly full grid here for this race. That's because they haven't been it's because they haven't been notified to ready up. Someone said ready up, but there's no ping, so I'm not sure that everyone would have noticed. Okay, here's 7. We need 10 to ready up before it will go anywhere. There we go, there's 10, so countdown starts, 30 seconds. But yeah, as I was saying before, should be in for a good race here. Even if it starts raining, it's very likely at this track that it rains. It's not the most likely track I think out there for it to rain, but I think there's a pretty high chance of it compared to most tracks in the game. So I think even if it does rain here, we should have a decent race though, because it's not as bad as a lot of tracks where in this game it starts raining and you lose all the slipstream, but the dirty air stays there, and obviously you lose DRS, so that just makes it so much harder to overtake, and you can never really get a good run on someone to make any kind of overtake. You just kind of get these wet races where it's just a bit of a procession, just one car following the next. But Brazil's one of those exceptions where, because of the track's flowing nature, you don't quite get as much dirty air here, so you can keep a lot closer to that car ahead. So using your ERS correctly and just being a bit brave on the brakes, moves are definitely possible. I'm going to move into qualifying. It would be nice to see a wet qualifying. That's usually quite good here. One of them, obviously one of the easier tracks in the game. It's not too long. I think in the dry you're looking at about a 1:12 lap time for qualifying. It is dry here in qualifying, so we aren't getting that wet weather. But you know, it's not the most technical track. There are a few corners. I mean, turns 1 and 2, it's quite easy to invalidate on turn 2 if you get that a bit wrong. There's turn 4, you can run wide a bit there, that'll invalidate your lap, as well as on the exit of turn 6, although that's a lot less likely in this year's game because it's completely flat, whereas in, well, not completely flat, but you know, you brake and then just straight back on full power. It's not like you have to be careful on the power or traction or anything. These 2020 cars do have enough downforce to usually get away with just keeping tight to the inside there, so there's not the biggest risk of invalidating there as there was on previous games. But it is still possible, of course. We have looks like a Racing Point could be the first car on track, so I would assume that's Ishtar. It is. So we'll get all the stuff up that we need. Oh, the game's very loud there. I'll turn that down. Jesus, that's loud. Let's see. That'll be why. Let's turn that down a bit. That is much better. Doesn't hurt my ears this way. And we'll do that just for this out lap and first lap of the session. So yeah, I didn't realise that would happen, but you guys can see my TV pod settings there, because this should be the offset TV pod usually, but I changed my camera so you guys are actually seeing. Oh, okay, I didn't realise that would happen. It's kind of cool actually. Just get a more central view from the onboards in this race. But here's Ishtar coming to start the first lap of the session. He's braking just after the 50-metre board, turning it in, being patient on the throttle. You want to try and rotate and flick the car into the second half, but without cutting it. You want to stay tight to turn 3 now. He opts for a more open line than most would. Now coming down, you want to brake just after the 100 on that little concrete patch between the grass. And you want to use all the track width on the exit turn 4 too. Same with turn 5, you should kind of keep a nice smooth action into turn 6 gear, keeping it tight to that apex, not running too wide, into second, short shifting to third on exit sometimes, and then up into fourth through the long left-hander here, using a bit of curb on exit. He's going to come up, try and use the camber of the corner here to his advantage, not using too much curb because it will unsettle the car. Small bit of oversteer there on exit because of the track's camber. Using a bit of grass on the entry to the final corner here in fourth gear. He's going to accelerate all the way up to the hill, staying over tight to that left-hand side as much as he possibly can to minimise that running distance down to the line. He'll stay over to the left, and the first lap of the session will be a 1:07.5. So not quite the lap time I predicted earlier, but 107.5, very good lap at the moment. Let's see who else comes across the line. Swen with a 107.5, and it's Rudy with a 107.1. Comes across the line after him will be the other Mercedes of Lord. I'll note he's starting a lap. What about the Renault of, that is Jim there, so he should be coming to end a lap. He's just coming through the final corner now. It's going to cross the line. It's going to be a 107.2, putting him second place at the moment, with Rudy still holding that top place. Who's going to be next? It's going to be his teammate Scoolsy, who's next across the line. Now let's see what he can do. So it's 107.3, so it's a good time there, but he's just moved down to fourth after being third, and he's had a bit of an incident there at turn one. But Harmer moves his way up into the provisional pole with 106.9. He's right on board now with who is that? That is Chiquito coming up to cross the line. He's actually invalidated his lap, so it won't count. But Lord Alam, that just shows how short a lap it is here. We only watched him start his lap a minute ago, but he's already come in here to finish it. So let's see what he's able to do as he comes to cross the line. Runs out of ERS just before he does it. It's a 108.1. So 9th place on those mediums though. So keep an eye out for that. He's very close, only about 6/10 off the back of his teammate Swen there on the medium compounder tyre, as Tao Piz with a 106.8 goes top, and Ishtar is actually not doing as well as he has done in previous races here. He's behind Basket at the moment, who is someone he's been around about for a lot of this season, but certainly at the start of this season you wouldn't have expected to see him sat right behind him at the lower end of the currently set times. So it must be a bit disappointing for him. But Rossi now, another driver who seems to have fallen off a bit in the second half of the season, invalidates as he comes through the final corner, so that's not going to count. It's actually going to invalidate his next lap too, so he's just going to have to come into the pits most likely. Rally is just coming towards the end of the middle sector now. Let's see what he's able to do on his lap. Okay, so he's coming up to the final corner. He's looking good through the middle sector, 51.5 seconds. So as he climbs up the hill towards the start-finish line, he's going to keep it over to the left here. He's going to cross the line to be a 108.0, so that is actually the slowest soft tyre time so far. No, sorry, it's not. Storm has that with a 108.1. So Rally there, only good enough for P11, and that's his second lap on those set of tyres, so maybe that'll explain why the tyre wear here in Brazil isn't the heaviest of any track, but then you've got to remember it is only a short lap, so that's to be expected. Yarlo with a 108.6, 15th place only on those soft tyres. Rossi will probably pit, Polwy will probably pit too. And Wilt has invalidated his time, so there's not much going on there. Let's see if anyone else comes out the pits soon. We do actually have Harmer, Rudy and Jim coming to start laps now. So Jim is going to start his second run of the session, the first man to do so. Let's just watch him through his turn 1 and 2, keeping it very tidy through there so far, keeping his car over to the left before slowly transitioning out to the outside of the track, ready for turn 4. Again, braking just at the end of that concrete patch on the outside and using a lot more track width than we saw before as at turns 4, and using a lot of inside curve at turn 5, which is unusual. Keep holding it in 7th on the run up towards turn 6, which is preferred. But he's had a scruffy run through his turns 7 and 8, and I think he might back out of this lap. He does. But he has, I think, just about backed out early enough to be able to go for another run straight away, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Rudy has invalidated, Polwy has invalidated. Harmer coming down to turn 4 now is a long way down on his time according to that. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but we'll have to see. No, he's in 0 ERS, so he's not pushing at all here. As Jim, I'm assuming, yeah, look, he's going for another lap here, so let's just ride on board with him for the moment, as he is the highest runner currently on a lap, or an actual lap. So see, he's he's about a 10th improvement through the first sector there. That's not going to help him though, a little bit too far over the edge of the track there, coming into on the exit turn 4, and it unsettles the car. You do want to use a bit of exit curb there, but too much and you'll find yourself with just with a bit of sliding, and that really hurts your time. It's been not the cleanest middle sector so far, but it's not been slow by the looks of it, as he's going to come across the sector split now. He is a 10th and a half up on his lap, so he has improved that middle sector, using a nice amount of exit curb there, coming through the final corner now. Going to stay over to the left hand side as always, and going to cross the line. It's going to be a 107.0, so it's an improvement by a 10th and a bit, and it moves him up to 6th place at the moment. As we have Dysepsky and Dresser. Dresser has invalidated, so Sepsky currently on a lap in his McLaren. He's also invalidated there at the exit of turn 6 by the looks of it, so he will back out and maybe go for another run straight away, maybe just dive into the pits and wait for his final run. Talpiz still holding provisional pole for now, as Scorsese improves to just edge out Jim here with a 107.0, and currently on a lap we have Storm, who's down in P13. Let's see if he can maybe break into the top 10. Not looking like it with that first sector split, I'm going to be honest. I think that was Wilt there, just improved to P9. Now P10 as someone else improves there. Chiquito improves up to P2 with a 106.8. Only about 5 thousandths off of Talpiz's provisional pole time, so very close between these two at the moment. Speaking of Talpiz, he's also on a lap at the moment. Let's see what he's able to do. Hopefully this traffic doesn't get in his way too much. Slight lift through the middle of turn 6, that's going to lose him a little bit of time. Maybe could have been a bit more patient on the power initially. Harmer is in the way. This is costing him time. Harmer needs to get out of the way. Oh, what is that? And that is Talpiz's lap ruined, really. And I would expect that one to probably get looked up by the stewards, and Harmer will most likely get some kind of punishment for that, as he is on an out lap. While we're talking about that, however, both Dresser and Sepsky improved. So Sepsky improved to 106.6, which is good enough for second place, and Dresser to a 106.4, good enough for provisional pole here so far in this session. So times coming down very quickly so far, and I'd expect the final runs to have them come down even further, maybe even towards that 105 mark. We have Rudy just... Is he completing a lap or is he starting a lap? I think he just finished a lap. He's P6 after that lap with a 107.0. So he's not using any RS, so I'd assume he's not currently on a lap. Rally pitting. Ishtar on a lap. Let's watch Ishtar as he comes through the final corner now, not using any of that grass on entry, so he'll probably lose a bit of time compared to his rivals there. Just see as he comes up towards the line, it's not looking too bad. It's going to be a 107.1, he improves by nearly half a second there and moves himself up into P10. And the field actually looking quite close here. We have P3 down to P10, all covered by about 3/10, maybe just under 3/10. And another, well, if it gets half a second back from P3 is P12 and 13, so not much time covering a lot of people here in this session. So a small mistake could really affect your starting position for this race. So these guys have got to make sure they're on it for these final runs here in this session. As I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that, because he did cross that white line, but we'll pretend we didn't see it. Jim on a lap right now then, by the looks of it. So let's see what he's able to do through the middle sector. Looking quite tidy. He's not using second on the entrance to that, it's just he's not quite getting as much rotation as he could. Obviously you want to rotate the car in second and short shift up to third for the better exit, but he's choosing just to hold it in third a bit, but he is still improving by just under a tenth at the moment, so if he completes this lap well he could move himself up into about 6th place, maybe even a bit higher with a good last sector here. As he crosses the line he improves by just over a tenth and it's 6th place only. So just ahead of Rudy there, just behind Harmer in the Haas. Haas doing quite well here so far with a P5-6 at the moment. Speaking of Harmer, he's just coming towards the end of a lap, but I don't think it's a flying lap, judging by the fact that it's quite a way down on the delta. Rally preparing for the lap, it looks like, so let's see what he's able to do. Is a big mistake there, and that's going to cost him time all the way down the straight. Shouldn't affect the start of his lap too much because the run to the line is quite short, but we'll have to see anyway. Coming through turns 1, 2 and 3, not looking too bad, tidy overall I'd say. Coming down towards turn 4, let's see what the time delta is. It's just under a tenth of an improvement there, so he is getting faster, so he's going to need a little bit more than a tenth if he wants to improve enough. I think a tenth should just about get him 10th place, but that's not exactly where you want to be, especially at a track like this where it's just a straight soft medium strategy, so anyone starting on the mediums does have a bit of an advantage by being able to go long in that first stint and then be on the faster tyre at the end of the race. Of course it's not too difficult to stay within DRS here at this track, so you can get a pretty good first stint even on those mediums. He improved by just over a tenth, so it is only 10th place for Rally, and he's at risk here of being pushed out of that top 10 with other people coming through to complete laps. Basket invalidating, so he will not improve. Swen, let's see, he's slightly up according to that delta, so maybe not going to improve enough here to challenge Rally. He's about 3.5 tenths down. His PB is at least 3.5 tenths down, so unless he makes any considerable improvement, which he does, he's just over 2 tenths up here through the middle sector. It will take a lot of time gained in this final flat out sector though if he really wants to challenge for that top 10. He's going to come towards the line now. Let's see what he's able to do. It's a 7.2, so he lost a little bit through that final sector. It's only good enough for P14 here. Puts him just behind Wilt. So actually, unless someone can really gain a lot of time, Rally might just about be safe there with that 107.1. Of course, Ishtar has yet to complete his final run, and there's a couple of other fast guys who have runs yet to come, but whether they can put the whole lap together or not will be the deciding factor as the flag now falls. So this is the last run for everyone in this session. The next time they cross the line will be the end of their session. Ladamala not improving by enough at the moment, as Tal Piz goes top with a 106.4, just edging out Dresser's time. Dresser looking like he's slightly down on his delta so far, so it will take a huge effort in the rest of this lap to improve. He does only need to improve by about half a tenth if he wants to reclaim pole position though, and he does gain a little bit of time back there, but it's not enough to go positive yet. Let's see, he's run through the final sector, very aggressive on that curb to minimise that distance, and he just pits. He decides it's not going to happen, and he pits, and it will be P2 for Dresser in this session, as Polpy doesn't look like he's improving. Chiquito's in the pits, and that's it, that's everyone finished. Everyone's either in the pits or finished. So it looks like Rally was just about able to keep safe there in 10th place, and Tao Piz takes pole position here for the Brazilian Grand Prix, penultimate round of the season, of course. What's Polpy doing? Is he out of fuel? No, he's doing this on purpose. Jesus Christ. Oh dear. What am I even looking at? He's about to roll upside down and everything. Ah, he gets 5 seconds for it. I'm not sure he'll be too happy about that. But Tao Piz with pole position here in Brazil. Dresser, second place on the front row, just unable to get that final run in, which cost him pole here by half a tenth, less than half a tenth. Sepsky about 2 tenths back from pole, P3. Polpy with this penalty, P4, will be P9. Then it's Chiquito, Harmer, Sculzy, Jim, Rudy and Rally rounding out the top 10. The rest of the field will be able to start on whatever tyre they want, of course. So expect to see a lot of them starting on the mediums so that they can do their first stint on the mediums, probably go to about lap 25, 24-ish. Never mind, it's raining. Oh dear. Guys asking if people were using wet setups, and a lot of them were not using wet setups. Some of them were. Wilt and Storm are saying that they were using wet setups, but a lot of the guys instead decided to run dry setups, which they can, of course, they can tweak slightly within Parc Ferme to adjust them for the wet. You know, a lot of the time the wet you just want to raise the wings. Maybe sometimes a bit of diff is useful, but I mean, there's not usually a whole lot of difference between wet and dry setups for league racing, at least in this game, because there's no point in using the wet line, because the dry line is literally, there's literally a dry patch along the track where the normal racing line is. So of course on that dry patch you have more grip and you're just overall faster, so there's no point in changing your driving at all when it's just light rain like this. Maybe a little bit when it's full wet, but even then a lot of the time you're just sticking to that slightly more grippy, drier line, because the game's physics don't really replicate wet weather driving all that well. But I expect that most of these drivers... Ooh, interesting. Very interesting. So they're all starting on softs, except for Rossi, who's on hards. So what I would guess from that is that the rain's supposed to get heavier, and so they've all opted for the soft tyres to just last long enough until they need to swap to inters, because it is a dry start here in Brazil. Although it is raining, the track's clearly not wet enough just yet to warrant the intermediate tyres, but I wouldn't imagine it will be too long before they have to swap to inters if it keeps raining. And by the fact that even guys outside the top 10 have opted for the soft tyres, I would imagine that that means that they have they've seen on the weather indicator that it's supposed to become inters weather pretty soon. Yeah, you can see the rain there. It's definitely heavy enough to make you think that there's going to be some inter-tyre running not too long. I mean, it's happened in the past where you've had drivers on the formation lap and all of a sudden it's gone through that transitional period while on the formation lap, because of course the cars aren't travelling as fast, so they're not clearing that water as much. So the track actually goes from being in a state where the slicks are better to having kind of this transition even just during this one lap to a point where the inters are better. And that can't happen just straight up on the formation lap, but the game won't allow you to start on the inters. It will force you to start on the dries. So that could be what's going on here, but in my opinion the track doesn't quite look dry enough. Sorry, doesn't quite look wet enough for a lap 1 stop. But we'll have to see, as the grid looks like it's just about formed up. We should be waiting on the lights now. If I can get a good camera angle, there we go. We have the lights turning on. We have 5 red lights. And we're away in Brazil. It looks like it's been a good start there from Dresser. Not so good from Tal Piz, who's had a bit of wheel spin. However, his second phase has been much better, and Dresser having to stay in second. Looks like there was a bit of a contact at the back before we even got to turn 1, and there it is. Scully has retired before we even get out of the first chicane, so something's gone on there, maybe with a bit of the slippiness of the track that's caused some kind of mistake, or we saw someone on the grass there, so maybe that caused a chain reaction. But already Scully is out of this race, which is quite disappointing from him. And we had a VSC, it's ended now, the VSC, and under that VSC we had Dresser, Jim and Polpy all received penalties for contact. Polpy, speaking of Polpy, just gets passed down the inside by Lord Alan as they go through turn 6, and just look how hard it is for these guys to get on the traction. And I mean, the rain lights are on these cars, so maybe an indication that it is time for the inters already. Just look, see the rear end sliding everywhere as Dresser makes a mistake there. Now, are they going to pit on lap 1? They're not, so Tal Piz continues. So does Dresser, Chiquito, Harmer. Sepsky pits, nearly gets rear-ended there by Jim, but Sepsky pits already on lap 1, whereas everyone else decides to stay out for now. As yeah, literally everyone else. Oh no, Storm also pits them. They're double stacking at McLaren. Sepsky changing his front wing for a fresh set of softs even, so it's not inters for him, and Storm having to wait for that double stack, which is a bit unrealistic in this game. He actually opts for the medium tyres, so the mediums will perform a little bit worse here in these wet conditions, but he thinks that the rain will not get heavier maybe, and he thinks that it will be a normal dry race here in Brazil. As we have Wilton Polby now going at it. Polby passed in the same place for the second lap running, and he loses out to Wilt this time. He's made a slight mistake there on traction. Is that going to invite Swen through? Doesn't look like it. Swen stays behind for now, but there's another mistake there from Polby. Does Swen take advantage of it this time? He does not. He stays behind for now. So just going to have to wait and see. Obviously very tricky conditions here through what can only really be described as the transition period, where it is still the dry tyres which are better, but you can just see how difficult it is for them to well, keep it on the road really. And you can just see how much more confidence people like Swen have on the brakes through into turn 1 there than others like Polby, who seem to be having trouble on traction and braking a little bit earlier than their competitors. For some reasons we have a mistake from one of the Ferraris. I think that's Rossi. Rossi on his hard tyres. Obviously those hard tyres will be awful in these wet conditions. The hards requiring the highest operating temperature, so they're the ones that will suffer the most in these cold wet conditions, as Ishtar is passed by Lord Alam. Lord Alam now into 7th place in this race. So yeah, Rossi really making a mistake by starting on those hards, and making a mistake at turn 2 and losing his front wing as a result. So unfortunate there. Now let's see, they're going to come past the pit lane again here on lap 3. Talpiz doesn't pit, Dresser doesn't pit, Chiquito doesn't pit, does Harmer pit? Nope. Jim doesn't pit, Rudy stays out, Alam stays out, Ishta stays out, so it is still dry tyre weather, as we have Ishta going well side by side with Lord Alam into turn 1 there, just squeezed a bit towards the apex there. I'm not sure how happy about that he will be, but just trying to get the better run through turn 3 now. He does have DRS. The DRS is still enabled at this point in the race, showing that it is still better for the dry tyres. Again, getting a bit of a squeeze towards the grass there and squeeze off the track at the exit turn 4. I'm not sure that he'll be too happy with that racing at all. He tried going through twice and both times just got shown off the track, which is quite bad, but I don't know the rules for this league. That might be allowed. You might be allowed just to push other drivers out as long as it's onto like you know, a surface like that isn't grass, or where they're definitely going to spin or something. Speaking of grass, Ishta hitting the grass a bit there on the exit of that very tricky corner and not looking like he's doing too well on this lap with the wet conditions. Maybe that little bit of grass on his tyres affecting his run, and now he's under pressure from Wilt, who's very close, going to try around the outside into turn 1, and it's a fairly easy move with the DRS. So he moves his way up into P8 in the Red Bull, Ishta down to P9, struggling a bit. Speaking of the Red Bull, Rally goes very deep into turn 1 there and loses positions, and it's down into P13 as we have that's Storm making a mistake in the middle sector there. He's broken his front wing again, and on those medium tyres, as I said before, the mediums with that slightly higher optimal operating temperature than the softs have, he's going to struggle a bit more than these soft tyre runners who we've already seen are struggling. So maybe not the best choice for Storm to have chosen those medium tyres at that pit stop, and he's going to have to change his front wing once again here, as Rossi, I think, has made a huge mistake there. He's actually got lapped by Talpiz already, so Rossi already a lap down, and Storm speeds into the pit lane, and he will also be a lap down already. And that just goes to show such a short lap time here at Brazil, and how easy it is to get lapped after just one or two mistakes. Could see Talpiz enjoying it out the front here a bit more than his rivals. He's got a high amount of ERS, so he's not pushing too hard. You know, he might be conserving those tyres a little bit, and he's got a nice 3-second lead over Dresser, who's clearly pushing quite a bit more with less ERS, and well, he's just not able to close that gap to Talpiz out front. So, and he has that penalty, of course, so Talpiz well and truly in command of this race at the moment, as we had a move for P11 here from Ladamala a little bit ago, as Rossi receives 5 seconds there. Didn't see what it was for though, but he also has a penalty, becomes the 5th man in this race to receive some kind of 5-second penalty, as we have a mistake here, and it looks like it's Rossi who's spun in the middle sector once again, just really struggling with this greasy track, really not having a fun time of it, and he just gets passed by more and more cars. It's just not looking great for the Ferrari driver at all. Wouldn't be too surprised if he ends up pitting and retiring at the end of this lap, to be honest. But there's actually been Polhui ahead. Polhui with a mistake out of the final corner. Has he received any damage? We'll have to see. Does he pit? No, he stays out, so it doesn't look like he got any damage, but he did lose a few positions there due to that mistake out of the final corner. So lots of drivers just struggling here. And Chiquito actually managing to catch up to Dresser here on lap 7. So maybe if he closes a bit more through this middle sector, he'll have an opportunity for a move onto the main straight and into turn 1. But that remains to be seen, as Sepsky now passes Polhui for P15. Didn't think we'd say Sepsky in P15 after qualifying, but that's where he's ended up, unfortunately. You can see Dresser not being as brave on the grass on the entry to the final corner there as Chiquito is, as Rossi also got passed by Storm and got 5 seconds for corner cutting just a moment ago, and Storm gets 3 seconds for corner cutting there as Rudy passes Jim onto the main straight, and it looks like it was a fairly simple DRS pass there. He moves his way up into P5, so Rudy really enjoying these conditions a bit more than those around him. Let's see if he can maybe close that gap to Harmer in the coming laps. It doesn't look like Jim's going to be able to mount a counter attack into turn 4, just a little bit too far behind. Didn't get the exit out of turns 1 and 2, so he'll have to stick behind in 6th place for the moment. Another very close battle here is Lord Alam, Wilt and Ishtar, who are all very close, with Swen lurking just behind in case anything goes wrong. Speaking of, very close to the back of Lord Alam there. Wilt a little bit deep on the brakes, but just manages to avoid any kind of contact. Loses him a little bit of time though, which could help Ishtar out if he wants to go for a move soon. Ishtar just that little bit too far back though by the looks of it, and not having as good a run through these corners as Wilt did. Actually very even the gaps here between Aram and Wilt, and then from Wilt to Ishtar. And I don't think it's quite enough for any kind of move. Of course 6/10 is when the slipstream starts coming into effect, but you really have to still be within half a second to make a move work into turn 1, and it might even be closer than that if you want to make the move in these conditions, of course, with that difficulty of getting the traction down and the slightly lower speeds coming down the straight. So it's just very difficult to make any kind of pass in these conditions, and that's not really the driver's fault, that's just how it is. And when the track's a bit greasy like this and it's not quite wet, so it doesn't have the same opportunity for mistakes, but it's probably just as dangerous to be driving, especially on the dry tyre in these conditions, than it is in the wet in general. As Polhui retires from the session and a full safety car comes out, so as Polhui is out just out of turn 6 by the looks of it. Looks like he's just maybe made a mistake through turn 6 as cars are coming into the pits. Dresser gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So does Ladamala. No, sorry, Ladamala gets a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. So a disaster for him here, but let's see what's going on in the pits for these guys. They're all going on to Inters by the looks of it. No, some of them have gone for Inters, some of them for softs. Rudy here for mediums, so it's going to be interesting. Ishtar also opts for the intermediates. So split strategy going on for some of these drivers, and it's, well, safety car period, so it's going to be a few laps of, you know, the safety car, the track getting wetter. Maybe those inters are the right choice. 26 laps to the end of the race, so might be difficult to take them the whole way. Same with those on the mediums. Basket on the hards, however, might be able to go the rest of the way. However, those hards will be awful in these conditions, so only time will tell whether that plays out for him. Yeah, but it just looks like Polhui maybe got a bit of a swapper on through turn 6 and was unable to slow the car down before reaching the barrier, so unfortunate for him there. But Tao Piz opting not to pit along with Lord Alam, so those two will lead the safety car restart here. As actually Tao Piz pits, and so does Lord Alam, so they didn't pit on the first lap, but they decide to pit this time round. Now, is it going to affect them too badly? They did have to follow the safety car, so they would be going very slowly, and I think it is going to be bad for them. I think Dresser's going to take the lead of this race here, unless these guys can have a mega pit exit. Of course, Dresser will have to drive to that delta, which is the only hope of Tao Piz here, really. But I don't think it's going to be enough. A Storm retires from the session. I'm assuming that'll be in the pit lane. And no, Tao Piz exits in 6th and Lord Alam in 7th. So waiting that extra lap to pit has really cost them. But both drivers there opt for the soft tyre. So Chiquito will now lead the field on this safety car restart on his fresh softs. And we'll have to see how they compare to the intermediates of Dresser and Ishtar's cars. It's a very risky strategy to go for those inters now, but it could play out. Even if the conditions aren't immediately ready for the inters, of course we'll have DRS disabled for a couple of laps, so it'll be harder to make any kind of pass. I don't think the difference between the tyres will be too big in these conditions, but only time will tell. We'll see in a couple of laps when we get a restart. It won't be this lap because of how far behind the back of the field is, as Storm's car retires, came out the pits and retired on the exit of turn 4 there. As Rudy, what? Did Chiquito make a mistake there? He must have. He's been passed by Dresser and Rudy through the final corner, so I think Chiquito made a mistake through the final corner, showing just how treacherous these conditions are, as Rossi ignores yellow flags to get himself a 5-second time penalty. I think that's because he's a back marker and he's tried overtaking for the opportunity to unlap himself, but those lights on the safety car are not green, so he will not be allowed to do so. And he will continue to get these 5-second penalties for ignoring yellow flags. Too many of those, and he'll get disqualified from the session. Just like that, so yeah, Rossi, not the smartest move I've ever seen there. I think he probably should have got the message after the first one, but he continued trying to make that lap back up, and as a result gets disqualified. So yeah, we're down to 15 runners in this race, 4 retirements so far, unfortunately. Looks like the field is bunched up enough, so I think we should be getting the safety car in this lap, but it's leaving it quite a while to give us that message. Maybe through the final corner here. I think that's quite a common place to get that. And the lights do go out on the safety car, so the safety car will be coming in this lap, and it will be up to Dresser to dictate the pace of the field until we get going again. Obviously he will have to wait for the safety car to enter the pit lane, and at this point actually this will work out quite nicely for him, because of course he's on those intermediate tyres which work quite well at a lower temperature, but the cars behind him are all on tyres which require a higher temperature to really get going, so he can really get a good restart here if he just cools their tyres down a bit and really plays this well. Rudy, overtaking him there, and staying ahead, Rudy. So Rudy now the pack leader on this restart, and he goes just as we pass the pit entry, and we have green flag running again. Looks like Dresser with the better grip into turn 1, but he's had Chiquito go around his outside, and he's come off the track at turn 3 after a touch with Chiquito. He's losing more and more positions. Harmer comes through. Let's see now, Wilt, Tao Piz and Lord Alam all lining up moves here into turn 4. We have yellows in sector 1 for, I think, a retired car. And that's another position lost there for Dresser. He gets pushed out at turn 4, and he's going to lose another position to Lord Alam there. Tao Piz now looking for a way through. He does get through. In fact, Dresser loses many positions there on the run up to turn 6, so just maybe unable to rejoin the track after that mistake, and that includes Ishtar, who came through. So Ishtar not struggling quite as bad as Dresser has on this restart with these intermediate tyres. We'll have to see if this trend continues. In fact, he's run into the back of Tao Piz there. Doesn't look like he got any damage from this angle, but that's affected Tao Piz's run quite badly. Now let's have a look. It's not giving me a camera angle where I can see his front wing. No, it doesn't look like there's any damage there, so he should be okay to continue. But I think what we can see here is that the intermediates were quite clearly the wrong choice, as Chiquito moves up into the lead of this race. So he was supposed to lead the safety car restart, but after a mistake and positions lost as a result, he started third, but he has made his way back up into the lead of this race with Rudy on those medium tyres, which at this stage would be so much worse than the softs, because of that higher temperature that they need to really work properly, as Rally passes Yarlo for P11 there. So crazy stuff so far in this race, with strategies and safety cars and just general incidents that have come as a result of this interesting weather. I don't think I've ever seen a track with rain take 14 laps to still be in that transitional period. This is insane. I don't think I've ever seen this. There's a mistake there from Harmer. That's going to cost him a position to Wilt. Is it going to cost him any more if the cameras worked in this game? I'll be able to tell you. As Lord Alam now looking for the move into turn 1. DRS is enabled, showing that it is still dry tyre weather as they come through turn 1 here. It looks like the better line for Lord Alam, and now Tal Piz looking for a way through 2. There's a bit of damage in the background there as well. It looks like Ishtar had contact with someone. Dressbassen getting past Rally, as sounds like there was people making contact down that straight there, and Harmer managing to keep ahead of Tal Piz for the time being. As Sepsky passes Ishtar for P11, so Ishtar just falling down to the back of the field now, along with Basket, who pitted for Inters, as there's contact there through turn 6, so Ishtar keeping the position. But we cut back towards Tal Piz here, who's maybe looking to the outside. No, not quite going to get it there. Hitting the curb there, that's not going to help his run too much. So he's just going to have to be patient here and wait for that main straight again. But we're here on lap 15. It's been raining the whole race, and we're 15 laps in, and it's still not wet weather, according to the game. So this might genuinely be the longest transitional period I've ever seen, as Sepsky passes Rally for P10 again, as now we have Tal Piz down the inside. I think that's ghosting going on there. I think on these guys' screens it will be ghosting because of desync, but it ends up looking a bit strange on our screens as a result. As you can even see there, if you look where Tal Piz braked there into turn 4, it's not that much different from where you would in the dry weather, and that's just kind of where the F1 game lacks in terms of wet weather driving. Is it's just dry weather driving, but a little bit slower. you know, it's just harder to get on the traction, and that's about it. So hopefully in future they improve that in these Codemasters games, but for the moment it's creating some quite interesting action here between these three guys. Lord Alam not really been able to pull away despite all this fighting between Tal Piz and Harmer. Now let's see, Harmer looking like he had a good run there, in fact, on Lord Alam. Now Lord Alam pits. Is he going to pit for Inters? I wonder. Are we finally starting to get towards that transitional period? As 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane there from Lord Alam. And now we've just got to see, as Lord Alam, he does pit for the intermediate tyres, so maybe we're starting to see that transitional period where it finally becomes suitable for the wet weather tyres. The intermediates at least. After 17 laps of this race, we might finally be getting to that period, as Dresser making a move for P7. So that really is an indicator that the tyres are starting to improve compared to the dries that his rivals have on. But do keep in mind, Jim was on the mediums there, but you can just see how much time he's already gained on Jim, and that he's closing that gap to Swen already. So I think it is time for the Inters. That transitional period has happened, and although Dresser's tyres will be a bit older than the rest of the fields now, there is about 10 laps left of this race. No, sorry, there's about 20 laps left of this race. So I have a feeling that it will be difficult for any of them to pit now and really take those tyres to the end anyway. But we see that no one really chooses to pit again this lap, but I mean, all the signs are there that the tyres are starting to become slower than the Inters, but they all decide to stay out once again. It can't be too long before they decide to pit. I refuse to believe they just stay out, knowing that the Inters are now the better tyre. But we'll have to see as Ishtar gets 3 seconds for multiple warnings. It looked like Dresser was just a little bit wide at turn 4. They're probably picking up a warning for that one. As we have yellow flags, and it's Ishtar, I think, retiring from this race. Yeah, he's got damage and he's tried to get himself back into the pit lane there. And he retires from the session, becoming the 6th retirement from this race, leaving us with only 13 runners. Now, hopefully his car doesn't get in anyone's way, as retired cars do tend to do, unfortunately, but let's hope not, because we have a battle now between Talpiz and Harmer. Harmer in front, but Talpiz will have that DRS now. He's had a very good run, and he's up into P4 around the outside, but before they even get to the turn 1 braking zone. Now Harmer very late on the brakes, and he's just run into the back of Talpiz. That's compromised Talpiz a bit, and Harmer now forcing his way through after that contact, and keeps the position ahead of Talpiz. P3 there, as Rudy pits for the Inters. So does Lord Alam, well, he did last lap, and DRS is now disabled. That is the proof that the Inters are now the tyre to be on. So I think at the end of this lap you should see everyone dive into the pits, and Dressbassen should reclaim the lead of this race. So looks like after all, the decision to pit under the safety car has worked out quite well for him, although I'm not sure if it would have made that much of a difference either way because of his position. But he should now resume the lead of this race ahead of Chiquito. Let's see, Chiquito does pit, so yeah, I think everyone will follow him in here. 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane though. I think we are going to see a lot of that, as in fact Harmer has to stay out to avoid double stacking with his teammate, which is disastrous for him really, and Wilt decides to stay out all on his own. Not sure about that one, and you can just see how much grip those Inters have compared to the soft tyres now, just by the run that Dresser is getting through turn 3 there. Into turn 4 now, keeping it clean, and a lot cleaner than Harmer's previous couple of laps. There's a huge mistake there from Wilt, and now Dresser, look how much he's closed up in the braking zone. Look how much more grip he has through turn 6 there, into turn 7, as he gets the move done now. So Wilt and Harmer looking like they're really struggling at this point for grip, as once that DRS is disabled, the drop-off is huge. It's just like that DRS is disabled and all of a sudden someone hits a switch, and the dry tyres are just unusable all of a sudden, which is why it's so important to make sure you pit on the perfect lap in this game. You can gain so much just by pitting at exactly the right time. And let's see, now we have Wilt and Harmer make their stops, but they've already lost so much time as Dresser also pits. Why is Dresser pitted? Is the lifespan on the Inters just that short? As he has to serve a penalty too. He got 5 seconds for speeding into the pit lane. But he's putting on new Inters. Maybe he did it so that he doesn't have to stop again in this race, whereas he thinks some others will. I don't know, it seems like a strange choice there for Dresser to pit and move himself down into what looks like it's going to be 6th place. Maybe 7th as we see Jim come out of turn 3. No, not quite close enough, so it is 6th place for Dresser here, and let's see what he's able to do on these fresh inters, but it is a bit of a strange choice. Whilst I think it was unlikely that his tyres would go to the end, I find it strange that he pits now instead of maybe taking advantage of something later on. I don't know. We'll have to see how he performs, as he definitely looked like he has an advantage over Lord Alam here. Lord Alam sliding all over the place, braking earlier too. There's mounting the curb there, that won't help Dresser's traction at all at the final corner. It's going to be difficult for him to get the move done now after that. Of course there will be no DRS. He will use his ERS here though. Let's see, is he going to go for the inside? No, he goes to the outside. Lord Alam chooses the middle of the track, and Dresser takes that opportunity to go around his outside through turn 1 and gets way ahead for turn 2. So Lord Alam just taking a little bit too much inside curb there, and it really hurt his run. And yeah, you can see the gap already increasing only a couple of corners later, and Dresser's nearly pulled a second on Alam there and is gaining on Harmer ahead. I mean, Chiquito now in the lead of this race. He has 2.6 seconds behind him to Tal Piz, and we'll have to monitor that gap, see which driver is quicker in these conditions at the moment, because that could become quite interesting come the end. Of course, we know how fast Tal Piz is at this track. He got pole, of course, so you would expect him to be able to put in a good performance in the remaining time in this race. We have about 14 laps to go, so really anything can happen. I mean, you saw what happened in the first 14, and I mean, if it happened in the first 14, it can happen in the last 14, right? As Jim and Wilt now going side by side. Wilt with a mistake through turn 3. That's going to make him vulnerable to Swen behind. Now, is Swen going to get the run? As we see ahead of McLaren all over the back of Alam there, and Swen does not get the run. All of these penalties here are 5 seconds. So they're all for speeding in pit lanes. I don't think anyone here actually has any track limit penalties, because I remember Ishtar got a track limit penalty, but he's retired from the race, so I don't think any of that's going to affect anything too much. We're just going to jump on ahead a little bit to Sepsky here, who's having a much better time of things here than Alam. Is Alam already nearly 4 seconds behind Dresser. Dresser very close to the back of Harmer already. He's basically pushing him through the final corner. Of course, it's flat out. Let's see maybe a potential move into turn 1. Going defensive here is Harmer, so Dresser going to try for the outside, but he's got to be careful. He has the Williams just ahead. He can't brake too late because he will risk making contact with that Williams. And the battle still, as they're making contact all the way through turn 3, still going on, but it looks like Dresser's going to have the better exit, going to use his ERS to consolidate the position. And Sepsky passes Alam ahead. Oh, there's a huge crash. Swen into the wall. Somehow not out of this race, but he's got a huge amount of damage there. And he's going to be suffering through this lap until he can get back to the pits. He's got Basket right behind him. So Basket will be able to move his way up into the points here. Grabbing P10 is the man who won this race last season. So not quite able to replicate his form from last season here, unfortunately, but with how his season's been going so far, I'm not sure he'll be too upset by getting some points after quite a quiet race here. Wilt all over the back of Jim, but Jim catching up to Lord Alam. Lord Alam really struggling in these conditions. Look at that, as he gets on the exit curb and a bit of a grass for the final corner. He's just not had the pace here in the wet, and it's really starting to show. There's a mistake there, and that allows Jim through. It's going to allow Wilt through. In fact, he pits. Lord Alam pits. Oh, now look at that very late move there from Jim, but Wilt opting for the outside as a result. He's not able to get it done there as Lord Alam retires. So he hates the conditions that much that he's just retired from the race, leaving us with 12 drivers left in the race, our 7th retirement. Better run there from Jim, and looks like Wilt's gonna maybe look to the inside. No, just not able to get the move done into turn 4 there, just not quite late enough for the brakes, but he's pushing him through turn 5. Just seems to have so much more confidence through the corners, through the faster corners at least, but maybe not as much through the braking zones or on the straights. Of course, Wilt, one of those drivers who said he was running a wet setup, so maybe he's running those higher wings and he's struggling on the straights as a result of those setup choices he's made. And yeah, 12 runners left in this race, and it's not looking like too much is going to go on. In fact, Rudy gets passed by Dresser. That happened quite a while ago by the looks of it, as Rudy is already behind into turn 1, so I think that might have happened last lap. As now Lord Alam's car is going around the track slowly, despite having... No, I think that's his teammate Swen. I think, no, that's Swen going slowly. But we have here Rudy and Harmer fighting now. Harmer catching the Williams driver. Obviously, ever since his battle with Dresser. And Dresser now with a 10-second gap to close to Talpiz in the remaining 11 laps, or 10.5 laps at this point. So it's going to be quite a task if he wants to improve his position from here, but he's proven time and again that he does have the pace to do it. So we'll just have to see, as Talpiz has actually been losing little bits of time here and there to Chiquito so far in this stint, but managing to hover around the 3-second gap. Of course, Chiquito has a 5-second time penalty, so Talpiz still in a good position to win this race. Probably knows he doesn't have to push too hard and just stay inside of that 5 seconds to grab the win here. And obviously not risking anything if he keeps doing that. Doesn't have to risk any kind of overtake. As Yarlo now passes Basket. Basket pits for another set of inters here. I mean, he has the gap to do it, but not sure that he needed to. You can have a look. It sounds like Rally just coming through the first corner there, so maybe Basket at a risk of losing a position. Rally, of course, will have the better momentum. Yeah, so Rally's going to get through. It's going to be side by side down into turn 4, but I have a feeling Rally's going to get the better of him, as this camera angle is just bad. Thank you, Codemasters. And yeah, so Basket able to go to the end of the race on those tyres now, but he has dropped outside the top 10 doing it. Swen also retires from the race, so that's the second Mercedes to do so, leaving us with just 11 runners. I mean, it's just not what we want to see, really, is it? 11 runners in this race. What's that for? 8 retirements. And I'm pretty sure that only one of them was due to an actual incident, which I think was Sculzy. Of course, we had Rossi, who got disqualified after overtaking everyone under the safety car, and Sculzy, who crashed, but I think every other retirement from there has... Oh, sorry, no, Polby. Polby crashed too, but we've actually had 5 retirements, which were just people pulling into the pits and pressing the retire button, so it really robs us of a bit of action, because you never know when a safety car can come out and it can all close up and they can have a chance again, but oh well. Yeah, it is what it is. Just looking at the gaps, we have Sepsky still hot on the tail of the Haas here, so we'll have a look and see if he's able to get a good run here for the final corner. It looks like gap is closing by enough. He's going to try to the outside as this looks like a small cut there from Harmer. So Harmer, who's just not able to really make much of an impression on Rudy there. Has now been passed for P5. Sepsky on a bit of a charge here in the closing stage of this race. There's 8 laps to go now, and we'll have to see where Sepsky can reach. He will probably be able to pass Rudy, but I'm not sure if he's going to make much of an impression on Dresser. Dresser at the same time just not gaining on Talpiz at all. Talpiz still within that 5 seconds on Chiquito, but is losing a small amount each lap, and I think it will be close towards the last couple of laps to see who will win this race. But right now it's Talpiz who is sitting in the net lead. Now just shifting our focus back to Sepsky here. He's about 4 tenths behind coming into the final corner, just not getting quite as good a run as Rudy ahead. So we're going to have to see if he can get anywhere close as Talpiz pits. Talpiz pits for mediums. He's gone back to the dry tyres. What? It's definitely not a dry track, I can tell you that much. But he's gone for the mediums, and we only have 7 laps left, so the softs would make it easy, but he's gone for the mediums. Maybe he meant to pit for another set of inters, but he's just thrown away a race win. I'm so confused. What has even just happened? As just behind them we have Wilt and Jim still going at it. Going at it for a few laps now, but Wilt just unable to find any way through. So Basket with a 3-second time penalty. Not that it might matter a bit. He is right on the back of Rally. Not been able to pass Rally ever since making that stop though, so yeah. It will be interesting to see if he can make any kind of attempt to get back into the points for the end of this race. Just going to have to keep an eye on Talpiz's pace here. He is slower than these medium tyres compared to the Inter drivers behind him, but not as slow as I thought he'd be. And he stays out, so I think that shows that it definitely wasn't a mistake, in his opinion, to go onto these mediums. Maybe he sees the track coming back towards the dry compounded tyres for the end, but I think at this point it's just the safer option to stick with the intermediates, and that actually has helped out Jim here a bit in his defence against Wilt. It's now Jim making that move for P6, and just pushing Talpiz off the track a bit, and that allows Wilt a pretty easy move up into P7 past the AlphaTauri driver. Wilt still about the same gap behind as he was before, and Rudy ahead, still under pressure from Sepsky. So these are really the only 2 battles going on right now, which is of course the negative effects of having so many retirements. But it will be interesting to see if either of these drivers can really do anything in the back half of this race, as Rudy now, as I say that, pits. So that's robbed us of another fight there as Rudy pits. Gonna have to see what's he pitting for, as he's followed in by Jim too. Inter's going on Rudy and Inter's going on Jim, so maybe they just didn't think their tyres would go to the end, but neither driver opting for the mediums like Talpiz. So I think it just shows that that was the wrong decision there from the AlphaTauri driver, who was really sitting in a great place to win this race before, but unfortunately it's let it get away from him a bit, and that moves Dresser onto the podium in P2 and Sepsky into P3. So good driving from these guys so far, and if Sepsky can close that gap to Dresser at all, he could even challenge for P2. Of course, Dresser with the 5 seconds from earlier when he sped into the pit lane. Yeah, I mean, you can just see how much the drivers are abusing that grass on the entry to the final corner there, and you wouldn't expect that in the dry at a lot of tracks. You wouldn't expect drivers to drive on the grass to go faster, but they do here in Brazil. And the fact that they can do it in the wet as well just shows just how poor the physics of this game are. As Wilt speeds into the pit lane as what I'll assume is a pit for Inters very late on here. I mean, he only has 3 laps to go. I don't... What, can you not take your tyres 3 laps? It's a bit confusing, really. But Sepsky looking like he's dropping off in pace quite a bit here. Harmer catching him, and he's lost over a second this lap alone to Dresser. So maybe the tyres are just dying right at the end here. And about 12 laps is the cut-off, maybe. I'm not so sure. And that's another thing that makes me think that maybe Dresser pitted a little bit too early earlier on. Whereas if he had taken his tyres that bit longer, he could have avoided having such worn tyres towards the end, and maybe could have made a challenge for the lead of this race. But the gap is coming down anyway, but not by enough to really worry Chiquito, I don't think. And Sepsky is falling off to the point where I don't think Dress is going to be too worried by him either. Harmer catching though 1.6 seconds the gap, so he's catching by nearly a second a lap. And this could get quite interesting towards the end. Of course, Harmer does have that penalty, so Sepsky is definitely still favoured here in this battle, but I'm sure Harmer wouldn't mind passing him on track towards the end of this race regardless, especially if he thinks that penalty might be able to be removed, although I don't think there's any way you can get any penalties removed for speeding into the pit lane. I think it's pretty cut and dry. You either go too fast into the pit lane or you don't, as Rudy passes Talpiz once again for P5. And yeah, Talpiz, you've got to feel really threw away a victory here in Brazil, but I wonder what it is that made him think that medium tyres were the way to go. Because I can't think of a reason why you'd want to put on the mediums with so few laps to go. As Chiquito pits, so he doesn't think he can take his tyres the last 2 laps of this race. As Dresser gets 3 seconds for multiple warnings here, so that's put Sepsky right back within striking range of the Alfa Romeo driver, and actually puts Sepsky in a net lead of this race right now. But there was 2 laps to go. Did he really need to pit? I don't know. But he will be flying for the last couple of laps now, and you can probably expect him to pass his teammate Harmer and maybe even Sepsky in the closing stages here. Harmer not gaining as much on the last lap compared to before, and Sepsky gaining a lot on Dresser. Has Dresser picked up a puncture? He has. He's got a front right puncture here. So I told you Dresser pitted too early. So that is just how close it was for these drivers, that they had to pit right at the end here. But Dresser now with a front right puncture, he's going to have to pit, and he's going to lose so many positions as a result. It's gone horribly for him. It's the penultimate lap of the race, so he's literally going to have to pit as we go on to the final lap. And if Sepsky can keep his tyres alive for this final lap, he will win this race, which is crazy. But he does have Chiquito bearing down on him as we go on to the final lap of the race now. Does Dresser stay out? Dresser stayed out. He stayed out with a puncture for the final lap of the race. This is going to get very interesting. You can see him there from the onboard of Chiquito and Sepsky. Chiquito, all he has to do is make a move here on this final lap. Well, I guess 2 moves, but one of them shouldn't be too difficult for him. If he gets past this McLaren, he will win this race here in Brazil, but I'm sure Sepsky will do everything he can. That lag scared me a bit. As he tries to defend to the inside of a very unorthodox place to make the move, but he is going to hold it. Is he going to give the room? He is. Gonna switch to the inside for the next corner. And it looks like Chiquito moves up into P2 when it's about to be P1 as he's on the inside of Dresser. Dresser with that puncture. And also Sepsky coming through there too. And I mean, what a finish this has been. Sepsky managing his tyres as much as he can to avoid getting his own puncture. And Chiquito gaining 2 positions on the final lap of the race to take the win of this race. Now, is Harmer going to be able to pass Dresser on this final straight? It's going to be close between the two of them. I think Dresser's penalty will put him behind anyway. But we have Chiquito win the race. Sepsky comes second, and it's going to be Harmer in third, ahead of Dresser after the penalties are served. And Dresser somehow managed to hold on to... Oh no, he's down into fifth as Rudy comes fourth. Dresser somehow managing to hold on to a top 5 position even after that penultimate lap puncture. And wow, what a close finish there. Tal Piz finishing 7th after what was looking like a pretty easy win. Yarlo P8, Basket P9, and Wilt DNFing actually right there on the end of the race. Rally should come home to finish P10. So we'll have 10 finishes in this race, 9 retirements, and look how... Has he also got a puncture? He does, he has a rear right puncture. So Dresser had a front right puncture, and Rally here had a rear right puncture all on the final couple of laps, and I think Wilt will still technically beat Rally there. No, Rally does beat Wilt just about, so crazy. Only 10 finishes in that race. We'll have 11 or 12 classified drivers as Yarlo Ron gets driver of the day. Had a very quiet race. I don't think I ever actually talked about him, but I think I mentioned him once, Yarlo Ron, but he gets given driver of the day by the game. But I've got to say my driver of the day has probably got to be Chiquito. For grabbing the win of this race right at the end. 2 moves on the final lap to get past a punctured Dresser and a struggling Sepsky, and really gave Is That Glock vibes, to be honest. But he does make that move for the final lap here, and it's going to be Chiquito, your winner of this race. Second place Sepsky. However, Sepsky did grab the fastest lap, so there'll be an additional point for that. Harmer P3, making it a double podium here for Haas, with Rudy P4 and Dresser very unlucky at the end there, grabbing P5. Jim P6 with Tal Piz P7 after pitting for the dries at a very bad time, and Yarlo P8 from P19. Basket getting 2 points there in P9, and Rally finishing 10th and last of our finishers. Wilt did not finish. Swen, Alam, Ishtar, Ladamala, Rossi all retired in the pit lane just manually. And then of course we had Skulzy Polhui, who crashed early on in this race with Rossi, who was disqualified for overtaking like 8 cars under the safety car. But yeah, crazy end to that race really. I knew it would probably get a bit tight at the end, but I didn't expect it to get that tight for the lead. And I certainly didn't expect it to be a 3-way fight for the lead. But yeah, I was expecting maybe we'd have a fight for 3rd and a fight for 5th, because it was looking like those were the closest groups. But then people started pitting and messed that up a bit. It looked like we were on for a boring finish, but then we got the puncture on Dresser. We got Sepsky struggling on his old intermediates, and with Chiquito come from nowhere to win the race. So yeah, crazy finish there, and well done to all 3 of those podium finishers. Really difficult conditions out there all race really. I mean, it took us 14 laps of rain before it was time for the inters. No, it was 17 laps of rain. It was lap 17. It was raining ever since lap 1, but it was lap 17 where it finally became time for the inter tyres. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just speechless, to be honest. that was maybe not the most exciting race ever. I mean, we've definitely seen more exciting Brazil races in the past. I mean, I was talking at the start of the stream about how good Brazil was for racing, but yeah, definitely made up for it with action just generally. Whereas we might not have had as much wheel to wheel stuff going on. We definitely had an intense race there, especially towards the end. So not so bad. Just gonna check the tier 2 and 3 stream, see if any of that is still going on. I don't think the tier 3 one is. I think I've seen Logie comment just now. However, the tier 2 stream, hold on, that's tier 1, that's also tier, why has tier 1 come up like 3 times? What's going on? There's the tier 2 stream, which is finished. Where's the tier 3 one? I don't know. I guess I just got to assume it's not going, and that race has ended, because I can't find it. So, yeah, that's going to be it from me today. So, thank you all for coming. Not the greatest attendance on this race, unfortunately. Not so many people getting to see that crazy finish, but it was great nonetheless. So, thank you to those of you who did come and watch. Of course, make sure to check out the tier 4 and 5 streams, which will be happening on Sunday at 8 PM UK time. Of course, at Brazil again for those streams. Make sure, if you feel like it, going back and watching the tier 2 and 3 races. Of course, they take place on a Thursday at 8 PM UK time, just like this tier 1 race does. And make sure you check out the sprint race, or the sprint races, which will take place on a Tuesday at 8 PM UK time again. If you're interested in anything Project Cars, they're doing a GT3 race in Project Cars here in ALR, which will be taking place on Saturday at 8 PM UK time. However, I think they finished the season last week, so the new season will start on April the 3rd, which is 2 weeks from now. So if you're interested in checking that one out at all, make sure you tune in on April the 3rd for the first race of season 2. But that's been it from me. So once again, thank you all for coming. Definitely enjoyed this race even without as much wheel-to-wheel action as normal. But yeah, hope you all have a great day and, well, evening, and goodbye.